think it's a bit of the human condition to often not finish what we start. And I think this is especially the case when it comes to painting and just art in general. And recently I was going through a stack of paintings of mine in my studio, and I uncovered a painting from about 3 years ago. It's a self-portrait that I started, and I never kind of took it to completion. And this is something I would like to work back into again, because I do want to break that habit of really, just continuing to push myself forward, even when it kind of is sort of difficult and you're not really sure how to move forward, but I know I have all the tools to be able to. So that's what I'm going to be working on here. And I'm going to be showing also just how to work back into a rather old painting, quote unquote old, and just how one goes about that, like just the very practical, specific things that you do to be able to kind of be more, to set yourself up more for success, quote unquote. So we'll see how this goes. I've never really worked into a painting that's quite this old, about 3 years ago. So yeah, so you'll see just the process of this. But one thing I do want to note, I don't feel like every painting is a good candidate for working back into it. This one works really well for it because it's still quite open. There's kind of a openness to it, and what I mean by that is that it's not too defined or specified that, oh, this is here, there's still kind of this aspect about it where I could move things without disrupting the whole painting. I could kind of adjust things, I could change things, and that's something that you kind of want to retain in a painting for as long as possible. Kind of always when you're working on something, you want to keep that. You don't want to close it off early on. So that's, I think the good thing, that's what I did here. And again, I do feel like you could work back into any painting if you wanted to. It's just, I say that because some paintings are more worth your while to work back into than other paintings. And you'll learn a lot by spending your time working through a painting that is still open. Now getting started with my mirror propped up for painting the self-portrait. So here's the self-portrait all ready to go. I mounted it onto a board just with regular tape. I ran out of my masking tape, and I'm using packaging tape here. But the gray is actually not too bad to use with a painting because, of course, gray is very neutral, so it won't affect any color decisions. So now the best way to work back into a painting is to actually mix up the same color that is on your painting in the area that you're starting in. So there isn't any right or wrong place to start here. The place where I would like to start, where I'm going to start, is actually up here. So I'm going to mix up this color that you see. And of course, there's no way to get it exactly right. We're just going to get as close as possible. Now for mixing this color, I'm going to be using Cremnitz white because that changes the color less. It'll affect the color less because it's more of a transparent white than titanium white, which I have here. I need to refill that. But so that's a tidbit about that. The thing though about Cremnitz white, a lot of people don't like using it so much because it is lead. It's lead white, which is why I'm wearing gloves. But you just have to take proper precautions and you're fine. It's not going to do anything harmful to you unless you're irresponsible with it. So as long as you're safe and everything, you're going to be totally fine. Now the big reason why it's so important to mix up the same color as the area where you are restarting your painting is because otherwise it can be quite easy to get lost. And you might end up just kind of painting over your painting entirely, kind of making something different. Versus when you mix up the same color, you're able to re-enter your painting and kind of add on to your painting and work with it versus just kind of painting over it. It just makes the process much more easy. Because colors can look so different on your painting versus on your palette, it's always good to check the color on your painting and see if you're close or not and kind of what needs to be adjusted. And here we can tell that it's too dark and it's also a little bit too green. So to adjust that, I mix in a little bit of white, and then I also mix in a small amount of alizarin crimson. Okay, there we go. I think we're good. So now that my starting color's mixed up, I can work back into the painting more properly, and it's gonna help me to be able to figure out what colors kind of work around that and how to mix up those colors, because I have something now to compare it to. If you can see early on here, I'm having to do a lot more structural adjustment than I initially expected to have to do. So I'm moving the position of the eyebrow because it's not in the right place. Whenever you're dealing with portraits, it's absolutely crucial to pay attention to the position of things, because you really need to pay strong attention to the drawing, especially if you really want to have a likeness. Now, I'm not being hyper-focused on making this look like me, but I really do want to focus on the position of things. And so then the outcome is going to look more like me because of that. But most important of all, I'm really trying not to focus on the fact that this is a self-portrait of me and kind of focusing on the facial features, but rather focusing on the color and just painting one color spot next to the other. All right, a real update on the painting here. So I took a step back from it a little bit. I left the session yesterday. Yesterday was the first session working on it. And I ended yesterday's session feeling really down at myself about it. I kind of went into it starting it thinking, okay, cool, it's gonna maybe just be one session, 2 at most, that it's gonna take to kind of really get into this painting and complete it. But that's definitely not the case, and I ended up making it look worse than it was. And in general, I have been having just problems with portraits lately, the past while, and it's been kind of a point of difficulty for me, which was one motivation for doing this project, for working back into this painting, to kind of really just go right head on with it and work at it. And I feel like there's a bit of a mind block, so that I'm working through. So I think that's part of the problem. So yeah, and I will be kind of doing similar projects in the future that are a little bit more portrait oriented to work through some of these issues that I'm having. So you can join me on that. But as far as this painting goes, I realized that one thing that I'm having trouble with here is simplifying. And I was simplifying, and I really preach simplifying, and I do practice simplifying, but sometimes you think you're simplifying, but you really could simplify better. And so I took some time to take a look at paintings by Degas. He has amazing self-portrait paintings that are beautifully simplified and just beautiful paintings. Just really good examples of how to do that. And then I looked at some portraits by other painters as well to just give myself some helpful guidance, because it can be really helpful to just take a look at paintings, to get a bit outside of your own head and to see, where you want to go, to try to see some sort of a path in front of you. So I'm going to try another stab at it. We'll see how it goes. I'm definitely approaching this now in a new, different way here, and it's so helpful and freeing if you just kind of let go of what you've already painted and allow yourself to just paint over something, which is exactly what I'm doing here, really making these big, kind of more bold, so to speak, color spots and really piecing them together. And this is helping me a lot just to kind of focus on this in a different way. And it's definitely absolutely so important, having looked at those paintings that I did, specifically those Degas paintings that I talked about, and how he simplified, because it's just, it kind of opens up your eyes even further. Even though I've seen those paintings so many times before, when you're working on something specific, it hits differently and you kind of see it differently. And I even have it open just on my table, kind of sitting next to my easel, so I can look at it just to visually kind of remind myself about it. And that's something I so encourage just anyone who's kind of working through something that they're having a hard time with to do that. And even if you're not struggling through a painting, just every day looking at paintings that you love and that you really admire and that you want to aspire to is helpful to kind of guide you forward. So that wraps up the second day of working on this painting, and it's going a lot better than it was the first day, so I'm really happy about that, but it's still a struggle working on it. I feel like I'm pulling teeth a little bit, but I really do now feel like there's kind of a way forward, and I kind of feel like I understand how to navigate my way forward with this particular painting. So that's great, and I'm really happy about that. But I do feel like I could use a break from this. So just a little break for today. So I'm going to end for today, and I'm going to head outside. Now we have a lovely olive tree in our backyard, and it's already time to pick them, and I've been meaning to pick them for quite some time. So during my break, I decided to go ahead and pick a small amount. Since you of course can't eat olives straight from the tree, I put them through a curing process. It takes some time, but it's well worth it in the end. Taking a little break always does wonders, I feel. It's so good to just step back a little bit, because when you come back to your painting after taking a break, you really kind of look at it with new, fresh eyes, and you're much more willing to take risks in your painting. So today we start day 3 of working on this painting, and I'm going to continue on just kind of really trying to work boldly in it and move forward. It is taking a lot longer than I thought it was going to in the beginning when I first started working back into this painting, but that's okay. I'm learning a lot, just kind of really pushing myself through this, and it's getting sometimes a little ugly, messy, all those things, but it's all good. And that said, it's so important for you to be okay with your painting not looking beautiful or pretty at each and every stage. It should look ugly sometimes. And this is something I've personally struggled with quite a bit actually. And I'm getting better with this over time, but just being okay with my painting looking bad sometimes, because you have to sometimes go to those places in order to push boundaries. And you don't want to just hang on to trying to make sure your painting at each and every stage is looking beautiful and wonderful and lovely. That's kind of unrealistic. And it's hard to push that aside, but it's really necessary. It's really necessary if you want to grow. Okay, so I was feeling so good about the painting when I left it at the end of the past session. I was like, oh, awesome, this is going great, perfect. But then I took a photograph of my self-portrait, and I kept on kind of looking at it, analyzing it, and realizing it's just fascinating how you see something differently when you look at it in smaller kind of format. That's why it's so important to step back and look at it. Unfortunately, in my studio setup, it's a little bit more difficult to step back from my painting because I have rather limited space. I'm really grateful for having a studio. I know not everyone can have a whole room dedicated to their art, so I'm really grateful for it, but it is smaller. So taking a photo of the painting can be really helpful because it kind of does the same thing, because you can kind of see it in small format and kind of see it as a whole more easily. So all that said, I was able to kind of see like, oh, the position of just things are a little off. And so that's what I plan to change in today's session. So going into day number 4 here. Now you can see here how I made enormous changes in the portrait. I adjusted the position of the eyes relative to the eyebrows, and I actually didn't have to do a ton of adjusting with that because a little bit went a long way. It's really amazing just to kind of see how just, changing things just subtly really makes a huge difference. And I also added more clarity to the painting. Kind of as I am on home stretch with something, I always ask myself, is the big picture present? Kind of specifically the big picture values, the light, medium, dark values, are they really clear in the painting? So I made that cheek area much more clear, and also the neck area is just more clear, and more the light and dark values are much more present. Now, after all that struggle, I finally came to a place where I felt like the painting is complete and I can step away from the painting. There's definitely things that I would change and work on, but I feel like this particular painting can hold its own, and I don't think it would be good for me to work back into it. I can take what I learned and apply it to the next portrait painting, which I'm definitely going to be doing, because I feel like I learned a lot through this process. It definitely was a struggle. It was an enormous struggle. Had its moments of being really messy, being ugly, just not pretty at all. And I talked about that before. It's so important to put that aside and not worry so much about every stage of the painting looking good on your painting. So if you have an unfinished painting, take it out and work back into it, because going through that process will help you to get past what stopped you from finishing it in the first place. Now, the format of this video is a little bit different from what I usually have. It's much more personal and actually delving into my painting process and a project that I'm working on in my own work. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comment section below. Or if you'd like to see something different, I would love to hear that. Or if you just want to say hi, I always love hearing from you. It always helps me to understand what you would like to see the most. Now, like this video, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in the next video.